And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Bubba and the BatFlip, episode 115. We continue our tour around the diamonds for our second time discussing the outfield position for the 2022 fantasy baseball season, whenever that may happen, because it will. And we're going to pick up where we left off. We left off through the first 35 outfielders last week. We'll make a run through 20, 30, 35 more. We'll see this week, see where things go. Got a couple listener questions, and we'll probably just go on tangents from time to time because that's what we're going to do. But before that, you can find me on Twitter at BDintric, and my co-host is always on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. Toby, how we doing, my friend?
We're doing all right, Bubba. I'm trying to keep it positive. In light of today's news that the season is going to be that we're going to have some games that are canceled, and they haven't come time. I chose a really bad day to be on a cleanse. I'm on day 2 of a cleanse. Yeah, where I just have these shakes and water, and that's all I've eaten for 2 days.
Oh man, you could be going on a super chocolate rush right now.
I'm feeble at the moment. So
no.
Yeah, but that's good. Okay. That's okay. I got plenty of energy for the show. But it's just
Can you check your cord again? Because you're going in and out. Toby. Now Toby's frozen. This is good. I think Toby got locked out. This is what it feels like, I think. Yep. Toby, we've lost you. Yep, he's frozen. Nick Pollock, you want to jump in, Nick? You can come chat some outfielders with us. I know it's right in your wheelhouse. Yeah, he was just talking about the news, Nick, and he's like, "Yep," and then everything went frozen. So we're going to work on fixing this. Let's see what we can do here. But I always appreciate you jumping in, Nick. You're the best. You are the best. If you want to jump in, Nick, I'll send you the link. Okay, there we go. You get the link. It's coming up in just a second. One second, everybody. We'll be up and running in no time. Technology doesn't even want to work on a day like today. It is great. Nick, link is sent. Toby's back. Toby, how we doing?
All right.
And we got a special guest coming on. Nick Pollock in the house, everybody.
What is happening? It's so good to see you guys. I gotta say, Toby, you look great when I can't see your mouth. I'm serious. This is wonderful, the way you got the pop filter and the mic there. You sound amazing.
What are you trying to say about my mouth?
No, I'm saying it means you're dedicated. You're
don't
dedicated
like my beard?
to the quality, to the people listening at home.
I am dedicated to the quality of the listeners at home. I respond to constructive criticism, and I embrace the new world of high quality audio.
You sound great. You really do.
You.
I gotta say.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I've actually I just changed the audio so that instead of being like, Bubba, you sound great, you'll be like, Toby, you sound great too. Because that feels good.
It's wonderful. It's sugar to my ears.
It's beautiful. That's the goal.
A little golden pillow of wonderful fantasy analysis.
It's so we can put him to sleep with our analysis, Toby.
Yeah. No, it's comfort is what it is. It's comfort on a day like today that is just it is hard today. I gotta say, guys, for I like to joke like this on a day like today that the worst thing you could ever do is be in a business that is out of your control if it exists or not. And that's what I've decided to do. So today's cool and great and sad and terrible, and I'm just happy I get to talk to both of you very briefly.
Oh, I'm glad you got to jump in real quick because you know what?
Happier.
If worst comes to worst, the beat still goes on, right? We keep chugging along because they're gonna play eventually. They're gonna play. It's just The owners have to stop being so greedy. It's that simple, but it's not that simple, I guess. So that's the grand scheme.
When would you say opening day will be?
I was talking about, I think it's right before you came in. I think at the earliest mid-April. I'm thinking more like May 1st. Sounds like opening day.
Oh God,
Which stinks. I don't want it that way. Trust me. I do not want that at all.
I know.
But
May
that's
1st.
just...
Is that you too, Toby?
Yeah, I'm pretty much.
And Toby's gone again.
The only
Toby's gone again.
There he is.
Toby's got a bad cord.
I know this. The Yetis do this.
Yeah.
I had to get one from Amazon.
Yeah, you keep going in and out.
Yeah, the connection
oh
right
my
at the
God.
bottom.
Yep.
Yeah, you're
So
good.
they have a
good?
bad location. You're good right
Good.
now.
Now I'm gonna stay away from it. Holy cow! Just when I'm touting my own audio, I think I'm pretty. I think I'm pretty in the May 1st bucket. I mean, I think the real challenge to the whole situation is that the owners do not really seem to care, right? Like
oh God,
there's all this posturing in the media that they've done, but they really haven't fundamentally changed their position at all. Right. And they're not willing to give in. And I think from the players' perspective, like they're very unified as well. And I think that's the challenge is, do the owners do anything until it starts hurting their pocketbook? Because I really don't think that the owners have the best interest of the sport at all in mind. I mean, it's a total
it's so sad.
money play. And so if it's a total money play and they don't care about the sport, which I firmly believe, at least the vast majority of them, then what's gonna cause the stalemate to break? Are they, is it going to be the players breaking away? And I don't think that they can, like in any good faith. So I think it's a really challenging situation. I don't want to be dire about it. I think we'll have baseball eventually because it is about money and it'll end up hurting the owners' pockets at some point in time. The TV rights and stuff like that will start pressuring them. But right now it's just glum that like the future of baseball rests in the hands of these owners.
Man, I'm just so sad that I have to hear a word like glum today.
Yeah.
That's a word I haven't heard for a while because it's all positivity, but glum has re-entered my vernacular now.
Glum.
Don't type it. It won't be as real.
Yeah, I won't. I will never type glum.
Don't type it.
Oh man.
Well,
I'm sorry. I don't mean to get us down. I mean,
no,
I'm psyched.
I'm just. I literally, my head was like, glum is a word, right, Nick? It is.
Yep,
it is. That's how much I'm usually so positive. And today I'm like, you know what?
Yep.
Baseball is still going to live. This is a bump in the road. The green pastures are ahead.
There it is.
But this sucks.
Yes, it does.
This sucks so much. And sorry, I just want Cracker Barrel with you guys as we celebrate talking about this.
Dairy Queen, little Dairy Queen right now.
Oh man, Bubba, don't do this. I'm on a fast.
Cleanse.
I'm drinking water. I'm like fast/cleanse or whatever. I'm just drinking like I've had 480 total calories in the last 2 days, man.
What?
Yeah.
And you're talking about Dairy Queen
and
Greens? Cracker Barrel? I'm just resetting. I'm resetting the system.
But what are the 480 calories?
Oh, it's like a plant protein shake.
480
with a variety of different, minerals and vitamins and things like that. And I do this for 2 days.
Yeah.
I do this for 2 days. And then for the rest of the week, all 5 days, it's pretty much just vegetables.
Okay.
With a little bit of plant and animal protein. So I'm going to have sardines for dinner.
Oh, wow.
And I'm going to have garbanzo beans for lunch in my salad. And I do this all the time. I do these all the time. I do it I did it 2 months ago. It's really nice for resetting your system. You feel great afterwards once you start able to eat actual food.
Sure.
And it's just a nice little reset because I have a problem with moderation. So I go through the same trajectory where I start off and I'm like, do one of these cleanses. And then I'm like, man, I feel great. I'm going to eat healthy. And then I'm like, oh, you want to know something? I should do I should splurge 1 day a week. I should be able to get my apple fritter. I should be able to go to DQ, right? I should be able to do these things. And then pretty quickly over the period of a couple days, I'm like, but it's Tuesday. And I should be eating anything that I want right now. That's
Like
delicious.
tacos.
I'm an
Taco
adult.
It's full
Tuesday.
of sugar. Exactly. So I just need to remind myself how much I enjoy food by denying myself.
All right, well there you go. It's
food.
like I stopped drinking coffee for about a couple weeks every December on purpose, so that I can reset it.
Toby
and
doesn't drink
apply
coffee.
more.
I drink coffee very rarely. When I do, it's mostly decaf. When I do have caffeinated
What's
coffee,
the point then?
Exactly.
Why are you
it
having
tastes good.
decaf?
It tastes good. What's the
Said
point of
no
drinking?
one ever for
See, I'm-
decaf.
What's
This
the
is-
point of drinking coffee if you don't like the taste of it?
Well, no.
This
There's
is-
a difference
this is
between
so great.
decaf and caffeinated coffee of taste.
Big time.
Yeah.
This
is what I'm getting at.
This example right here between his diet, the healthy diet plus the dessert diet, his coffee, the way he analyzes baseball, the way I analyze. This is why we work well together. We are like the yin and the yang of the situation. Like
And
I go and have like a steak dinner. He's basically a vegetarian, like a pescatarian. Like we're like totally different.
absolutely, it's like the
It's
olive
great.
law from How I Met Your Mother, right?
Yep.
You have the
It's
steak, he has
awesome.
the dessert. You know, you guys compliment each
I
other.
just
that
love
way. And
listening to it.
You guys are such a good compliment that here I am wedging between you. and
You're
I need
always
to get out
welcome.
of
No.
here.
You're always welcome.
You want to know what's really good coffee? Vietnamese coffee.
Yes,
That's
you tried
when
to sell
I
me on
drink-
this. I need
when
to
I'm
I
try
not
this.
going to
drink
listen to your opinion on this,
caffeinated
Toby.
coffee.
I can't.
It's incredibly
I don't
good.
know. I don't know how to feel. I mean, I'm a guy who had Folgers all of last year because it was so convenient and cheap. But now I've actually discovered my favorite coffee.
The guy who drinks Folgers all the
Knew-
time
knew
is
it was
telling me
bad.
there's a difference between caffeinated
Yes,
and
because I knew it
decaffeinated
was
coffee
bad.
taste. I mean, come on. How
I
are
knew
you like
it was bad.
eroding your credibility
I'm trying
with
to tell
every
you.
second?
I'm trying
Oh,
to
this
tell
is
you, I
great.
knew it was bad. And even I knew drinking Folgers at how wrong you are. That's what I'm trying to get at. But now I
mean-
drink Joe Coffee, Big City, and it's like the greatest coffee in the world. It's, oh my God.
I don't technically drink like regular coffee. I have lattes. I have oat milk lattes.
He's got to have sugar
all right?
with his. He's got to have a lot of sugar.
Well, I
This
do.
is what Toby does.
I do two
No
little
sugar,
teaspoons
just
of sugar.
oat milk and
oat milk,
lattes.
right?
The Vietnamese coffee, you use sweetened condensed milk. Now that one is sugary, but it's also absolutely delicious. And it's Robusta beans, which I didn't know this at all, but Robusta beans are 3 times as caffeinated. Super caffeinated compared to Arabica beans. And I didn't know this the first time that I had my Vietnamese coffee at home. And I made it super strong. And I don't drink caffeine usually. I think I already shared it on the podcast, but I felt like I was like outside of my body.
Yeah, it was just
like with
jittering
what was
all
going
over,
on.
right? And it was just
Jittery,
too
like
much,
just
yeah.
looking at my
I saw
arms
that.
and
Nick
my
had no
hands,
idea
like,
what he's getting into
who
tonight.
do these
No,
boys
No,
do?
I mean this is what I needed though. And I just gotta say, would you say it was
Robusta.
Robusta. It sounds
beans.
like Robusta Groove. What a
There
what a
you go.
wonderful
Robusta
game.
that sounds
those
like a
were.
great thing to do at FPAS this year. We're going to Robusta groove because we're going to get some
Robusta.
baseball.
We're
to
going to
watch.
see who can put the most tablespoons of Robusta beans in their coffee.
No,
We're going to
why?
all take.
I
We're all
don't
going to
do
have a cup of
this.
Robusta beans, Vietnamese coffee. Go play wiffle ball at FPAS. I think we have something.
Oh yeah,
going
well,
on here.
wiffle ball is something I've been trying to push for a while. And I will say, you guys should know this by now. I think, I mean, it shouldn't be a surprise that I do not give in to peer pressure. I don't care. You can say whatever you want, Nick, about, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to have a coffee off and see who can endure more caffeine. I don't know. I don't want to do that. No, you win. Congrats, Toby, everybody. You wins. No. I mean, I can't wait to see you guys again in Arizona. I'm a little upset. You know, I didn't go down to Florida, of course, because for obvious reasons, though, spring training. And
Conference is still happening though, virtual.
It is. I will be there.
I will be there
this
as well
weekend.
Friday.
Fantastic. Is there a poker game? Can we make one?
No, I don't know. That's a
Probably.
good question.
Probably.
But all
Those are
right,
some late nights.
I've stolen your time for my own joy enough. I think the people need to know about outfield. And
Part 2.
I mean, part 2. So I assume it's like 26 now. I'm going to go with that.
We're getting deep. We're starting with number 36.
Oh,
36 through 70.
Yeah.
Whoa.
We do it different on this
We
podcast.
see.
Yeah, you do.
We see how far we can get. Depends on how much Robusta beans Toby had.
Yeah,
To see how
for
far
sure.
we can get.
If I had Robusta beans right now, with the amount of food I've eaten over the last 2 days, I would just like I don't know what would happen.
I'm gonna segue into this by saying, where is Jorge Soler, and where's Akil Baddoo?
Well, Akil
Jorge
Baddoo
Soler was
is
30
not
Jorge Soler
anywhere.
is
He's going way too high.
Jorge Soler
and Jorge Soler is great.
He's 55. Badu's 39.
Okay, Soler needs to be higher than 55.
These aren't rankings. These are ADP. These are by ADP. So we analyze them by ADP.
Come on. Bubba, how dare you put him at 55?
Yes, you know me, always moving and shaking the ADP world. That's me.
Come on, man.
Nick, before you go, though.
Yes.
Congratulations on your FSWA
award.
Yes.
For Podcast of the Year. You and Alex have been doing fantastic work for a number of years.
So who gets custody of the award?
You keep on getting recognized in all these different spheres, like baseball pods tournament you win, and then you win the FSWA, and you're always trying to be humble and stuff. I just want to see you own it, Like don't give in to the pure humility pressure.
I am serious. When I got the phone call, I picked it up and they said, "Hey, is this Nick Pollock?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're trying to call Paul Sporer. So here's the number right now in case you need that one." I mean, it's amazing. It's something that is only a product of everybody else.
It's well deserved.
There's no way we're doing this stuff without everybody in the industry, as you guys know, being just amazing and supportive and all of that stuff. Also, I think we had a huge benefit. They didn't give the award to On the Corner. They gave the award to the Pitcher List podcast, Pitcher List Fantasy Baseball, which Hacks and Jacks is a part of, and also separately got nominated. So they are the true winners, in my view.
Ooh.
And that network is like that feed over the offseason had, I think, 12 different shows go on it. So it's a product of everybody. It's not me, Alex, whatever. It's Adam Howe overseeing the entire thing. It's all those amazing.
Adam's great.
Together.
We love Adam.
Oh my God, Adam!
On the podcast.
What a joy it is I get to work with him. So it's an incredible thing. I'm still shocked that we were able to beat the likes of NBC and The Athletic and Fangraphs and our own Pitcher List podcast. But
you beat your own podcast to do it. Wow, that's kind of
it was.
The boss is this.
Wow.
But yeah, no, I gave a better speech than Alex Fast, and that's all that's important.
Yes.
So.
And by the way, I forgot to tweet it out, I think, but the two of you with Piece of Pia on Fantasy Pros was one of the funniest things I have ever heard, because I know both of you guys pretty well, so I know the humor, but that was genuine. Man. It wasn't even shtick. That was genuine. Just I loved it. Loved every minute of it.
We don't do that. You know me.
Yeah.
I don't want to fight ever, and that is the only time I think I allow it. But it's because everyone knows it's so tongue in cheek.
Yep.
Right. And the fact that Fast is coming up with this stuff without any ranks of his own is
so good. It was so good.
Like, what do you want from me? Where are you going to put Marcus Stroman? And he's like, would you have it above him? He goes, well, no. Like, what am I doing wrong? Point goes to Alex. Yep. Unbelievable.
And he set you up by putting the outline together with all kinds. It was amazing.
It was a really fun time.
He's been living down in Hollywood too long, where he's already making scripts and all kinds of stuff.
It's unreal. We got to save him. We got to save him. All right, seriously. Talk about outfielders. The people need it. Okay?
I'm good.
But all right, I'm going to go.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, Nick. As always.
Thank you for having me. And never freeze your camera again, Toby, okay? All right, I'll have to steal the show instead.
If you show up every time I freeze my camera, Nick, I will be freezing my camera all the time.
I'm always watching.
Especially you come on the show and you're like, man, your audio quality is
seriously though.
Notch.
Seriously, guys, if you're listening to this right now, leave a review for A Bench with Bubba and tell Toby how good his audio is. Seriously,
it's pretty darn good.
He needs to know how we all appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. And on that, have a wonderful podcast. I'll see you guys later.
Thank you, my friend.
Bye, Nick. Thanks for joining us.
So yeah. Well, that was fun.
That was fun.
I love it. I love it. If people want to jump on from time to time, I'm always up for it, especially if we're gonna have a lockout. So let's kill some time having some fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it listening and it wasn't too much for you. I'll put in the notes, jump to 20 minutes if you want to go straight to the fantasy stuff, but it's fun just to catch up. And if you guys think that was kind of goofy, you should have been in the car rides with me, Toby, Nick, and Miles, going to Cracker Barrel, to baseball games, to Dairy Queen. Yeah, it was just like that. So enjoy it. But all right, Toby, let's pick up outfielders. Where we left off, Toby hates most of them, 1 through 35. He doesn't like most of them because they don't contribute categories he doesn't want.
In TGFBI, I did draft. My first two hitters are or two of my first 3 hitters are outfielders. So I guess I'm a liar.
Beautiful. When the
They're ones
rubber
I
meets
like.
the road. Rubber meets the road. It gets fun. Well, yeah, you got your stall. Let me guess. Was there like a Rosarena, an O'Neill, Luis Robert,
No.
Kyle Tucker?
No. I
None
kind of
of the
surprised
Steals
myself
guys.
a little bit, but well, I went with I got Byron Buxton.
I don't mind it. I
went
I
Byron
like him. I'm
Buxton.
surprised that came out of your draft.
And yeah, I mean, the thing is, I've been drafting DCs over and over and over again. And so like it's just such a different situation when you can actually put somebody on your bench or have an injury replacement for them. And on a per plate appearance basis, he's just so
He's a beast.
phenomenal. And with my start, like I started Burns. What did I start? Wheeler,
Pocket aces. Okay, surprised.
Wheeler, Iglesias.
Nice.
Is how I started.
3 pitchers
and
out the
then
gate.
I went with Buxton.
I like it though.
And then I went with Dylan Cease.
Nice. He went pitcher heavy early.
I went very pitcher heavy. I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it, but I'm trying this out. I'm going to see how the offense fills in, how comfortable I feel with it. It hasn't been a draft where things have fallen the way that I have wanted them to fall. I've been looking at other people's boards and I'm just like, my God, like Burns at 18.
I feel you.
Zach Waxman posted his board. It was like,
was it a real board or was it one of Zach's fake boards?
Oh, I don't know, but
I'm just saying. It's what he's done.
I don't know, but
times.
It was Burns at 16, Hader at 45.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's fake if that's the case.
I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it is.
See.
But he
With
managed to get on the
know.
podcast. So it was just, I was just like,
it's a heck of a
and
start.
I can't. Yeah. Well, we'll see. I don't love it. I honestly don't love it. But
and where were you at? The 8th pick? You said
I was the 6th pick.
6th pick. Okay.
I was the 6th pick. But I feel pretty good. I mean, honestly, the Burns, Wheeler, Iglesias start was great. I was just hoping that maybe some other guys fell to me.
So was Hendricks and Hader already gone?
Yeah, they were gone. So I think Hader went the pick before me or 2 picks before me. Okay. That would have been really nice. But
yeah, that would have been
can't win them all.
Nope. No, you got a great start. So that's good. We'll see how that keeps going. And when we get closer to finishing these drafts, we'll maybe do an episode towards those and to kind of talk about how things went there, because it is interesting doing that. I did my tout draft today, done like one other fab league, I think, and changing the mindset between the two, DCs to fab. It's a little different. You got to kind of take a step back and see where things go. So we'll get that going for sure. But let's head to the outfield. I usually would have changed the ADP like settings for dates, but I kept it the same so we keep close to the same order. So it's still from February 9th on. So there's 25 total DC drafts in the books. And at 36, we have Trent Grisham, 37, Chris Taylor, 38, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., 39, Akil Baddoo. And as of last night, 40 was Austin Meadows. So we'll go with that. Meadows and Verdugo are actually tied in ADP at 161.84. So Grisham, Taylor, Gurriel, Baddoo, Meadows. Thoughts, Toby?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, Grisham is interesting. I haven't drafted him yet, but he's definitely a guy that's on my radar. He should be batting leadoff mostly for the Padres, and the Padres have some major weaknesses in their lineup. So whereas like in last season when they were fully healthy, dropping him to the back of the lineup was a possibility. I'm not sure it is, this year. So I anticipate that he'll probably see a few more plate appearances hitting first. And one thing that I noticed about Grisham when I dove in was that he actually doesn't have platoon splits. So like he's actually hit lefties, I think, better than righties.
Very well. Yep.
So far. And so there's a little bit less of a concern there. I think the one concern I have with him is the power. I think we saw that power in the shortened season, with the 10 home runs and less than 300 plate appearances. And that was super encouraging, but he saw a pretty significant drop in his barrel rate last year, down to 5.2%. I know he did battle some injuries, but the combination of that like little lack of power and the fact that I just don't think the batting average, with his, I don't think the batting average is going to be there. I mean, the projections have him kind of 240s. I'm just not quite prepared to go there at this point in time in the draft for a profile like that, when like, you have Robbie Grossman growing a little bit later, who has a pretty similar, profile, if not like maybe a little bit more speed, even potentially a little bit more power. So it interests me, and I could see him taking that next step and being big. So Grisham is a little bit interesting. Taylor, I'm not really interested in at all. He's had a couple of short periods of time, like, a few months or a half season where he's really looked great, and then he's looked awful since then. I just think he's a little bit of a batting average liability. He's getting older. He does play all over the diamond, but I'm just not anticipating like anything particularly special from him. And I think the downside is pretty considerable. Lourdes Gurriel, I have not been in on Lourdes, although I know there's a lot of smart people who are interested in him. And he was really good towards the end of last season. We've seen that he can put together some incredibly hot stretches, batting average being there, but the speed isn't necessarily there. So I haven't really been going down that path. Akil Baddoo, I just have no interest in whatsoever. Talk about platoon splits. He's god awful against lefties, and he's no longer a Rule 5 pick. And so they don't have the same type of pressure to keep him up, not even necessarily in the major leagues, but just in the lineup. And if he doesn't perform, I'm not exactly sure, that he stays in the lineup, since Detroit is really trying to turn that corner and become a contender. And besides, if we have 18 teams in the playoffs this year, then the Tigers might just make it. And then last, Austin Meadows. Meadows is a tough one because he's always there. He always seems to be like hanging out there waiting to be drafted, but the batting average is a bit of a concern with the batted ball profile, just, really low ground ball rate. The home runs have been nice. The speed, it hasn't necessarily been there anymore though. So like the combination of that just makes it a lot less appetizing of a profile. And he just hasn't seemed like the same guy since he got COVID in that shortened season. So I haven't really been on him either. So again, I do dislike most of the guys. I have a total of 0 shares of these 5, I think, on all my teams.
Yeah, it seems to be a trend here, Toby. Seems to be a trend. I'm just kidding. Yeah, for me, Grisham's an intriguing one for me because you mentioned there shouldn't be any platoon splits because he hits lefties quite well, better than he does righties. Played 132 games last year, 15 homers, 13 steals. But like you also mentioned, there was more of a platoon situation last year. Their team was better, which they shouldn't be this year. He walks a ton, great OBP skills. He's intriguing to me, to say the least. Very, very intriguing to me. If he can get back to like 140 plus games, I'm very in on him. But he's one of those guys, if I'm kind of short on steals early in my draft, he's a guy I like to target. Or I'll look harder at that point in my roster construction. Otherwise, if I'm pretty good on steals, I'd probably pass. I'll get another pitcher or something at that point in the draft. But if I know I need steals, he's one of those guys I don't mind checking the box on because if he does play enough, you can get 15 plus steals out of him, and he should score a ton of runs if he does hit atop that lineup. So I think Grisham is quite intriguing in that kind of roster situation. Chris Taylor, I was all about him early in DC season, but the more I look into him, the more I look into other players in general, it was like I was kind of going, oh, he's got so much multi-position eligibility. This is great. If he doesn't play, he's like a bunch of games, he's really not that great. He really isn't. He's got to play as 140, 150 plus games, or he's just not going to be there. And with the Dodgers, that's in question. Like right now, if as their team is, he probably plays a ton. But A, we know the Dodgers will spend money. And B, he's got to stay healthy too, not just the platoon situation. So it's a tough pick. It's very, very tough. A guy that I have a couple early shares of and nothing since then. Lourdes is one of my favorites. I absolutely love Lourdes Gurriel. I drafted him today, actually. I've drafted him many times. I love the batting average as the draft goes on. I love the power. I love the idea that he could hit like 4th or 5th in that lineup this year because Springer probably goes towards leadoff potentially, opening up some spots in that middle of that order, no Simeon and stuff. So I think he could take another step up. The dude is a legit powerhouse, and he actually hit better, I believe, at the Rogers Center than he did. Or like you said, he finished the year so strong. So I love Lourdes. Yes, he's not going to steal bases. Like, you just got to get that one through there. But 25 plus home runs, great average, runs, RBIs. Like, he's a great 4-category contributor for you. So I love Lourdes Gurriel Jr. and Austin Meadows and Akil Baddoo. Baddoo, I like him more than you do, but I'm not like forcing myself to draft him at all. It's like if you want to take a risk, I think he's got a pretty good ceiling if he can figure it out because he's still so young. But there's a lot of big floor, as Toby mentioned. Lots of things that can go wrong there too. So I'm not super in love. And Austin Meadows, 0 shares. And you can ask Paul Sporer what I really think about him. So I've let Paul Sporer know a few times about what I think about Austin Meadows, because it wasn't just injuries. He was platooned in the second half of the season. So the Rays don't think so highly of him either. At least not the way he was playing last year. That could change. He was obviously a stud player at some time, and maybe he gets healthy and gets going. But the Rays always have a ton of options. Like, what if Brujan comes up and starts playing well, or they want to platoon Meadows and Manny Margot? These are things they can do to make life really, really fun. So, no Meadows for me.
Guess what Akil Baddoo's WRC plus was against lefties?
Oh, he's horrible. Let me guess, 37.
47. His OPS was 523.
It's bad. It's real bad.
Yeah.
Well, because like the thing is, he'd still play every day, but it was one of those he'd bat like 8th or 9th versus lefties most of the time, and he'd lead off versus righties. That was when you doing DFS, you watched it all the time. It was like, oh, they got 4 righties this week. Sweet. He is a good guy for an FPC. I will say that much. Like, if for schedules, if you can play the right-handed game, he's going to hit towards the top of the order. He hits them decently, and he gets on base and he runs. Like, but do you want to have to do that shuffling all the time, especially with the pick potentially as high?
Yeah, exactly. That's the question.
At that point in the draft, you should be drafting starters still, not platoon guys in your lineup. So that's the problem. Like, that's why I said I could see the ceiling. Maybe he learns how to hit lefties at, like, let's say an 85 WRC plus, like a 700 OPS. Still not great, but that at least makes him formidable. Then it becomes a little more interesting. But yeah, it's one of those I'd rather just pass and let someone else take that gamble type situation. All right, 41 through 45. Alex Verdugo, again, same ADP as Austin Meadows. We got Hunter Renfroe, Avisail Garcia, your boy, Eddie Rosario, and Dylan Carlson. So what are we liking in this range?
Yeah, so Verdugo, I just don't understand necessarily. Like, Verdugo has 33 home runs in more than 1,300 plate appearances and 14 steals over the same period of time. Like, why would you get Verdugo here instead of Gene Segura, a few rounds later, right? I mean, there's probably so many guys, if we were to just go through a list, like maybe I'll make the Alex Verdugo list of all these outfielders we're going to go through that I'm just like, oh yeah, I'd much rather have him. It's just not necessarily a special profile. And I understand that people get him because they need really strong batting average. But honestly, I would much rather have Michael Brantley just straight up than I would Alex Verdugo. He's likely to have a higher batting average. He's likely to hit for more home runs. And yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make necessarily any sense to me at all. Hunter Renfroe, I like a lot. I have not gotten him, but it's more about the profile than it is anything else. I mean, Renfroe he was phenomenal last year. I mean, he's a guy who could lead the league in home runs for sure. So last year he hit 31. He had 57 barrels, a 14.4% barrel rate. He's going to be playing every day. He's a former Gold Glove outfielder, so theoretically he's going to play pretty good defense. He managed to cut his K rate last year, increase the contact rate significantly. I mean, significantly. So maybe there's a little bit of give back, but I really like him a lot. I just haven't found myself getting him because he's probably not going to contribute a ton in batting average, though I think he could surprise some folks. He's not really contributing in anything in steals. And so really it's kind of that power that you're paying for. And Jorge Soler is going later. Adam Duvall is going later, and they're not identical necessarily. I definitely trust Renfroe a lot more than that, but just not quite as good. Avi Garcia is a guy that I actually love. I think, full-time plate appearances, he's a high batting average guy. He steals bases. He had 8 stolen bases, I think, last year, or at least he's projected for that this year. He's got the pop. I really like him, and I've found myself getting him in a lot of different places. He's kind of a guy that's been showing up on a lot of my teams recently. Eddie Rosario, everybody knows I love Eddie. The challenge is knowing exactly what the situation is going to be. The fact that we have the universal DH pretty much agreed upon. is pretty strong. I think gives him a pretty strong thumbs up. I think he's going to get playing time. Maybe there's a slight platoon concern there, but you're talking about a batting average guy, a home run guy, a little speed guy, potential for double digits, more likely kind of in the 8 range, but really like him a lot. And he's obviously a guy that's going to shoot up into the 125 to 130 range. Once he signs with the team. Dylan Carlson is just kind of like he's kind of blah. Like he doesn't really do anything. I think I was decently into him last year before he really shot up the board, but there's nothing like overly compelling about the profile. It's solid in terms of contact and O swing, but even with the super high BABIP, he only put together a 266 batting average. The home run per fly ball rate has been steadily very low, at 12.2%. The barrel rate is not overwhelming at 28, 7% last year. So, even in that, like maybe he got a little unlucky, but it's pretty much in line with where he should have been. I just don't see anything, and he's not stealing like he did in the minors, which I think was the big thing for him. So, of those group, for sure, Avi Garcia and Eddie Rosario are my favorites there. I think they're really nice contributors kind of across the board and pretty similar, honestly. Like if we knew where Eddie Rosario was going to end up I would assume if they both got 600 plate appearances, you'd see a pretty similar line between the two of them and very similar approaches, honestly, too. Like they both swing at every pitch thrown at them. And for that reason, like a lot of people will fade him because they're like, the contact rate's not great. Swinging strike rate isn't great. But when you're on that end of the extreme, you just swing at so many pitches. You swing and miss at 2 of them in the same at bat. You still got that third one to mash.
Yep, no doubt about it. I'm with you on Verdugo. Verdugo is interesting because I think it's still some of that Dodger prospect pedigree people love, hitting towards the top of the Boston order. He's got really good OBP skills. He has lefties fine, so platoon shouldn't be an issue. Still a lot of questions. I'm with you. It's like his overall production, you threw out 1,300 at bats, and what have we seen? Like, really not a lot, but maybe I think people are hoping that we get it this year, so you're trying to get ahead of the curve. It's a lot of hoping. But that's what I get out of listening to other people. But I'm with you. I'm not grabbing many Verdugo shares. Like OBP, I look a little more at them, but I still don't like rush to do it type thing. It just makes a little more sense. I love Hunter Renfroe, as you mentioned. Decent average, tons of power, doesn't steal. For me, I take Lourdes over Hunter. That's kind of where I'm at, just because I like the batting average upside. Might sacrifice a couple homers, but I think there's a lot of similarities in their overall production by the end of the season. We'll see, but Hunter's very good. I have no problem with Hunter Renfroe, and then playing for Milwaukee will be tremendous. So that'll be a great spot for him as well. Avi, I'm with you. I think I actually drafted Avi today as well because he's a decent OBP guy, but what he does, which I like so much because I needed steals, is he will run for a big man. Not a ton, but he runs enough. Like he can hand you 8, 9, maybe get you 10 stolen bases, which would be absolutely tremendous. He had 8 last year. Projections, the BatX has him for 10 and 22 homers, a 268 average. That's playing in Miami this upcoming season. 29 bombs last year, 20 in 2019, 19, 18. So you're going to get a good amount of power, decent batting average, and the ability to steal some bags, which I love about Avisail Garcia. And Miami will run. That's what they'll do. So he went to a good team if you're looking for stolen bases. So I'm with you. I like Avi quite a bit. I think he's a really, really good spot here. Hopefully like your outfielder 4 potentially, unless you really, really wait on the outfield position. But I think he's a very, very good one to kind of snag. I agree on the Eddie Rosario love. He's an absolute beast. Still confused on how it didn't work out for him in Cleveland. Like, that's just a great ballpark for him to hit in. Just didn't click, but he goes to Atlanta and crushes. Like you said, wherever he signs, he's going to be one of those guys that balloons up the ADP board. Just like there's going to be a handful of guys. He will be one of them because between the DH and his teams needing outfielders, most teams that sign him are going to use him regularly. So I like Eddie Rosario a lot if you want to take the value now. Got a guy with a little bit of speed, got some power, like you mentioned, similarities to Avi for sure. And then Dylan Carlson's a tough one for me because even before last season, I dug in on him a lot. Like the production, not great this past year. Not going to deny that at all. Still super young, 23 years old. He still had 18 homers last year, which was good, 266 average. He just doesn't run. There was hopes he would run because in 2019 he stole 20 total bases in the minors. 8, 10 prior to that. Just didn't run at all last year, which is kind of strange because like Tommy Edman ran a ton. So why was Carlson not running? If that switched, he'd be tremendous. I just don't know if it's going to switch. Because even Goldschmidt ran last year. So it's really confusing with the Cardinals. Why did Carlson not run when these other guys ran? And so a lot of it might have been because he's sitting down in the order to start the season. So that kind of could have prevented him from running. That would change with the DH. That's one thing to look at. But he could also move up in the order. We've talked about, Harrison Bader maybe moving up, like Bader ran, O'Neill ran. More guys I keep thinking are running on Cardinals except Dylan Carlson. So maybe he was hurt. I don't know. He's one of those guys I'm willing to take a chance on if you really, really need stolen bases. But that's only if you're like really, really desperate. Again, not a must play. And Rudy Gamble said it best. He tweeted it out, I think it was on Monday. He said he's making adjustments to the Razzball draft, whatever, like simulator thing, that the second you draft Kyle Tucker, you're not allowed to draft Dylan Carlson. So it was a pretty funny joke because people like to compare the two, which is because Carlson had that minor league profile we just haven't seen in the bigs yet, where Tucker we've seen. We know what we're getting. So I think that's why people still like Carlson. I get it with Carlson. Verdugo, I don't get it all. Carlson, I get. If you still believe in what you saw in 2019, still, if he gives you what he got last year, it's not horrible, but not what you're looking for. So pretty tough for me. All right, we have 46 through 50. This is a couple guys I like here. Benintendi's 46, Robbie Grossman's 47, Alex Kirilloff 48, Adolis Garcia 49, Ian Happ 50. You like any of these guys?
I do, yeah. I like Benintendi. You got a nice little, he doesn't like wow you in anything, but solid in batting average, solid in home runs, solid in steals, and, really improved as the year progressed. Robbie Grossman, I like. I've got him on a few teams. The batting average is a little bit of a concern, but kind of this group of players, like even from starting like pretty much with Badu, all the way through, he's kind of the guy that probably has the highest ceiling when it comes to steals. So like if you're down in steals and maybe you have a little bit of average to give up, Robbie Grossman can be a really nice fit. The Tigers lineup should be better. He's a great OBP guy. He should hit at the top of that lineup. He's a switch hitter. He should be in there. So I always like Grossman. Kirilloff, I haven't really been getting much of Kirilloff. I do like him a lot, but he's had kind of these consistent wrist injuries. I think this is last year was the second consecutive year he's had a pretty significant wrist injury. He looked really good when he was playing, but I haven't really gone after him. Not a lot of speed there, and I'm often attacking kind of batting average and speed here. Adolis Garcia, I haven't gone after either. The power and speed are pretty nice, and actually the projections still like him a decent amount because he's got that power speed. But I just think, after that hot start, he was so bad, and if he continues like that, I don't think that they have a ton of reason to keep him in the lineup. I think he falls under that that Jeff Zimmerman OPS of 700 line, where if you fall under that, you're in pretty grave jeopardy of not playing anymore.
The Miles Straw line.
Yeah, the Miles Straw. Yeah, we won't go down the Miles Straw train of thought.
Had to do it for you, Johnny O.
Yeah. And Ian Happ I like as well. Really turned it on towards the end of last year. The speed is it hasn't been there all the time, but there's a decent amount of it. The pop is there. The batting average is the obvious concern. And when you look at the projections, that's the area where he's hurting a little bit. But in that Cubs lineup, he should have a pretty prominent place there. So I like him too, especially if you're down in power a little bit here, and maybe have a little bit of average to give.
I'm with you. I like this range a lot, especially if you waited on outfielders. I almost try to reach and get a couple guys from this little group here because you get a little bit of all five categories with most of these guys, which is huge for the way we like to build rosters of kind of making sure all your guys contribute for the most part if you can. Not all of them do. Like you mentioned Kirilloff. I still like Kirilloff quite a bit. He got hit by a pitch. That's just still it's a wrist injury. I'm not going to deny that at all. It sucks, but we saw Matt Olson come back and crush last year. Kirilloff's young. It could backfire because it is a wrist injury. We've seen it fail way more than it's been great. But even before he got hurt, his contact skills were insane. He was just mashing. He took him a little bit from coming from the minors, slow, and then once he got comfortable, he looked like he was about to have a really big season. Let's put it that way. And then he got hit by on the wrist. So to me, you're getting him at a discount. It could be the injury discount, and it could backfire. It could not be a discount. So it's kind of where do you want to take your risk? I like him quite a bit. I like he's first base outfield eligible. So it's one of those, if you kind of waited on first base also, it's a nice little give and take with Alex Kirilloff, so I like him quite a bit. Back to the guys before him, Benintendi I have a lot of shares of. I love Benintendi, like you mentioned, all 5 categories. I think people are just kind of like over him because he was this big Red Sox guy, didn't produce at all, and he got traded. But then we saw 17 homers, 8 stolen bases. He had 3 straight double-digit steals and homer seasons with Boston. He had 276 last year. Like, he's hit for an average and power, like a decent power and stolen bases in each of the last 4 full seasons. Like, they haven't been like lights out great, but they've been pretty darn serviceable if you really look at it. And there's no reason why he shouldn't do that again this year. He's going to play basically every day for the Royals, a team that we've talked about before as like a decent fantasy lineup. Like, they might not win a ton of games, but they got some assets in that lineup. So Benny should be really good. And I'm honestly surprised he's still sitting at this point in the draft, because I figured by now enough people would have realized he's actually pretty valuable, but maybe some don't think so. Robbie Grossman, I'm on board with him. He's similar to Benny. He had that big year last year, of course, the 2020 type deal. Do I expect some regression? Yes, but I still think he's going to be very good. They're going to let him run in Detroit. He's going to hit towards the top of the order. They gave him a big deal. They're going to play him. Like, they might not play Badu to let Riley Green come up, but they'll keep playing Robbie Grossman. There's no doubt about that. So Grossman and Badu should be switched in ADP, if anything. So I like Grossman quite a bit. I have a lot of Benny, a lot of Grossman. I have 0 Adolis Garcia. I have no desire to take Adolis Garcia. I have not even put him in a queue in a draft. Like, he's literally, if I could eliminate players from the draft pool on NFBC, he would not be in the draft pool. I want nothing to do with Adolis Garcia. If he somehow figures it out, I'll tip my cap. And I'm with you on Ian Happ. Like, there's a lot of swing and miss. People talk about, the Jazz Chisholms, the Javi Baez's. Happ's got a lot of that. But he's also got some interesting walk skills too. Like, he's a weird dude. A lot of swing and miss, but then he'll walk his fair share. Tons of power. He mentioned the speed's not there all the time like we thought it would be. But he's going to be hitting in the middle of that Cubs lineup. And that's a team that's got nowhere else to go. So they're going to play him if they don't trade him. So I'm with you on Happ. So this is a really good group. Like, I prefer Benny and Grossman, like Kirilloff, like Happ. No Adolis for me. But I have a lot of shares of this group right here. So I'm a big fan of them. All right, 51 to 55. We have Marcelo Zuna, Joey Gallo, Seiya Suzuki, Michael Conforto, and Nick Pollock's favorite, Jorge Soler. So what are you seeing in this grouping?
I mean, Ozuna's fine. He's not on my board. I'm not drafting him. Gallo, if you're in an overall competition, like, it's really hard to take that batting average. And certainly, like, he could improve on last year. The batting average was incredibly low, so he's probably going to be better than that. But it's still just really hard to take. And it's kind of like, why not just grab Miguel Sano going however much later if you want that type of a profile? Because, the power is going to be relatively similar per plate appearance. And, you have the same type of just general profile that you're getting. So not really interested in Gallo. Suzuki, I haven't gone after. He obviously hasn't joined Major League Baseball yet. I don't know where he's playing. I don't know how good he is. And so generally, and again, I miss out on a lot of talent because of this, but I also don't go after get like huge busts because I'm not really going after guys that I'm not really sure how good they're going to be. Conforto, we've talked about him before. I mean, he's obviously falling, so he's a little bit more interesting. But outside of that shortened 2020 season when everything was going right for him, he just hasn't been that spectacular. It's like 232, 257, 243, 279, 220. Like 33 home runs are his most. He's never had 100 runs or RBI. He's solid enough, and if he ends up in the right place, then potentially there's some interest there. But he's also going to shoot up leaderboards, like if he signs for the Rockies or something like that. If he signs for the Phillies, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with Conforto. I don't hate him where he's going, but he just hasn't really been on my board because I'm not really looking for that profile. At this point in the draft, I just still think at this point in the draft, there's just so many bats that look very similar, including like Jorge Soler. I'd much rather have Soler. If you look at the underlying metrics for Soler, he got really unlucky in the first half. I think when we did our podcast and we talked about guys we expected to have second half surges, we talked about Soler because everything looked really good. The O swing is solid. The contact was up. The ground ball rate was lower. And so it was just a matter of him kind of falling into that luck, and the barrels to home runs was totally off base. And So he's just a guy who, again, could lead the league in home runs and actually be really like have a decent batting average, I think, because of the profile that he has, especially if he ends up in the right place. So I like Soler a lot, especially if you're chasing power at this point in the draft, which I often am. So is that the last guy in that group? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's an interesting group. I don't have a ton of shares either. Like Ozuna, I get the arguments for and against. I get it. I don't want to get into the off the field stuff here, but I get it. If he signs somewhere, the Braves will still have him, so he's going to play. He can hit. I get it. Joey Gallo, 0 shares. I'm just passing on that. You pretty much said everything that needs to be said there. Seiya Suzuki's been interesting to me. And maybe it's just me like believing too much, but there's been some good articles that have come out recently talking about him from some very smart people that like watch that stuff. And yes, a lot of it we've seen not translate from Japan to the bigs. That's the kind of the tough part here. So like I'm not all in on him, but where he's fallen or in different formats, I've kind of taken my chances with Suzuki to do it to like 26 plus home runs in like 5 or 6 straight seasons. He's at over 300 pretty much every season. He's just an all around like 5-tool baller in Japan, like really, really good. So if say he comes over and hits 275 with 20 and 12 or something, it's pretty good for right here. That's kind of like I'm thinking like the floor should be decent, hopefully a good ceiling. They're talking Boston, which would be great. Giants, Seattle. Those are some fun spots for him. So it's risky, like you said. There's not a team like even today after the lockout news and the cancellation of games. He reported and said, I still plan on signing with the MLB. So like he's just waiting because I think he already had to tell Japan yes or no because they're ramping up. So he's just waiting now until MLB gets their stuff together, like the rest of us. So I think he's a fun gamble. I really do. I think he's got a ton of upside there. Conforto, I have no desire to take. Like you said, he had that one big season. It's just been a lot of question marks since then. So I'm not really there. Plus, he's a free agent. So maybe he goes to Colorado. He's a little more intriguing. That's an option. I've heard that as a weird rumor. But what if he goes to like Pittsburgh? Like I'm not saying he would because they'd have to spend money for that, but just throwing out a random idea. Like what if he goes to Pittsburgh? Then you're just like, yeah, I'm good. Don't need to deal with that. So that's like Cleveland would make sense, and that'd be kind of interesting, but not a bunch. So we'll see with Conforto. I love the Soler take, like you said. We talked about it. We like to talk about guys that are like the X stats look great over like a couple weeks. These guys just are underperforming. Some people think it's crazy, but you can kind of pick up on things like you use your rolling graphs for a similar reason. And Soler just popped everywhere. It wasn't just like 1 or 2 little things where you try to see. It was just like his hard contact rate, his barrel rates, but then his X stats. And he was just on the top of everything you looked at, basically. So it was like you knew something had to click eventually. He gets traded. Like he actually started hitting with the Royals before he got traded. Then he got traded and just went bonkers with Atlanta. So I'm with you. He's a fun one as well. No steals, really. Not so. You got to keep that in mind, but tons and tons of power. So interesting range. Not all in on this range. Have a little bit of Suzuki and not really much else in this range at all. 56 through 60, AJ Pollock, Harrison Bader, Enrique Hernandez, Josh Rojas, Ramon Laureano. If you waited on stolen bases, Toby, you have some right here in this group. Like almost all of these guys will steal bases for you.
Yeah, I like AJ Pollock a decent amount. I mean, the concern with him is, like at least Roster Resource has him batting, I think 8th, in the current iteration of the Dodgers lineup. But he's been a really good hitter the last 2 years when he's been healthy. When he's been healthy being the key, but he can steal some bases. The batting average is decent, and the power has really been there the last 2 years. So I like Pollock a lot, and I've got him on a number of my teams. Bader, I'm not really interested in Bader. My concern with Bader is, he had that really strong stretch towards the end of last season, but if you look at the underlying metrics, there weren't really any changes. I'm working off my memory here, so maybe I'm wrong, but it was really BABIP and home run per fly ball rate driven. And so it didn't really seem like it was a sustainable change that he had made, but just was kind of like a really good run of luck that he was going through. And the batting average floor is pretty low. Again, he's going later on. So if you want a little bit of that power speed combo, then, maybe that's a direction that you want to go in. But for me, I haven't really been interested because I just think that there are better players that have a pretty similar profile. And then let me just get back to our list. Sorry. Kike Hernandez. I like him a lot. I don't have him because I'm generally not looking for that type of profile, but really solid, Whether or not he'll continue to hit leadoff in the Red Sox is kind of a key to his value for sure. But he did a good job there last year, and he's overall solid, really solid approach. Doesn't swing at a lot of pitches outside the zone. He's kind of a decent OBP guy there. So if he does that, a lot of runs that he can score and some of that pop. Not really any speed, but we can't all be perfect. Josh Rojas, not super interested. I mean, I've heard some really compelling cases for why, he could be a lot better. But the problem for Josh Rojas, for me, if my memory serves me correctly, is he's kind of like Kevin Biggio, who I like to mention on every show. His max exit velocity,
Brian Slack, to take a drink,
is 104.6 miles per hour, 355 batted ball events. His max EV is 104.6. He had 17 barrels last year, 4.8% barrel percentage for those 11 home runs. He hasn't really stolen much either. I mean, 14 steals in 777 plate appearances. I just can't really get behind it. I just don't think he is as good as maybe some people expect him to be. And I'm not sure he's got the skills to kind of take the jump to the next level. Even that 264 batting average was with a 345 BABIP. So just something to be thinking about when it comes to Josh Rojas. Laureano, I haven't drafted at all. I probably should, especially, but I'm also in a DC where I'm really looking to generate those plate appearances. So maybe in a fab league, you take a stab at Laureano. He's going to miss a month of the season. Obviously, that's more a chunk of the season now than it was earlier today. So something to factor in, but certainly going at a nice little cost per plate appearance, if you will, where he is in the draft right now. I haven't really gotten him, but he's got that same profile that a lot of the guys that I like have.
Yeah, it's the fun range. Pollock, I like a lot, like you mentioned, if he plays, and he could be a huge benefactor of the DH because the Dodgers will use it to give guys days off. And in the 60-game season, Pollock and Turner got the most use out of it, which makes a ton of sense. And Pollock had a big season that year. So you give him those random days of just DHing and not running around out there getting hurt. He will give you a few bags. He's got power. He'll help in all 5 categories, which is beautiful. So I don't mind Pollock at all. Harrison Bader, I'm a little more in on than you. I understand everything you said. I get it. He's got double-digit steal upside, double-digit power upside. I think we haven't seen the potential ceiling from him just because he's always hitting at the bottom of the order. There's always like little things with Harrison Bader where there's been little kind of nuggets thrown out there from different beat writers from St. Louis that if Edman kind of struggles again, we could see Bader get chances up top, which would change his fantasy value tremendously. And so it's a pure speculation draft-wise, but to me, when you're drafting DC teams and he's your 8th outfielder or something, that's a pure speculation pick, or your 6th outfielder or whatever. I'll take the speculation type thing. I think it's an even better pick potentially, like right now as the season lingers on, because if it doesn't work out, you drop him. You go and get someone else because Bader's a waiver wire guy more often than not. So I'm kind of in on him for a guy that if he were to lead off and potentially keep improving to where he left off, we could see like a 15 to 20 homer guy with 15 to 20 steals. I think that'd be pretty solid stuff. So I think Bader's interesting. Enrique Hernandez, I liked. It doesn't run at all. I was really shocked. Like the more I looked at him earlier, just does not run. I always thought in my head, he runs. No, he does. He just doesn't run. But good power, gets on base, scores runs if you want that. I like Josh Rojas still. The overall numbers are struggling, but go ask Alex Chamberlain. There's something there with Rojas, and he's got tons of flexibility positional wise. He's going to keep playing every day. So if you want to take the chance, you can. If you don't, I get it. I have a couple shares. I'm all in. I'd rather have Pollock or Bader. Laureano's the tough one, and you nailed it. I look at him in every draft room, and I'm like, he's so good. He is. He got hurt again. It's those what is it, 25 games, 30 games he's missing to start the season whenever it starts. It's not prorated based on when the season starts. And that's why if it was 162, you're like, okay, he misses April, no biggie. But now it's okay, now he's going to miss a 5th of the season, a 4th of the season. What are we talking here? And that starts to change the ADP in a big, big way because the talent's, it's awesome. But I have no shares so far. And it's tough because he legit has 15-15, maybe even 20-20 if he were to run hot upside. He's that good. So that's a tough one. Like you said, the points per draft pick or whatever term you used, tremendous with him. It's just we need to start the season. Start it now, and we'll be okay. The longer it progresses the wrong way, he gets hurt pretty big on this one. 61-65, Jesus Sanchez, Joe Adell, Charlie Blackmon, Austin Hayes, Adam Duvall.
Yeah, interesting grouping. Jesus Sanchez, I know there's some really smart people, including James Anderson, who are really into Sanchez. I just haven't been able to get there. Like I look at the BatX projection and the batting average isn't that great. It's got him for 20 home runs and 540 plate appearances. The Steamer has him for 24, which would be nice. So if he hits 30 home runs, obviously that's great, but the batting average probably shouldn't be that good. The counting stats, I'm not sure they'll necessarily be there on the Marlins team, depending on where he hits. And he also tends to hit like a ton of ground balls. If you look throughout his minor league career, like the ground ball rate, the lowest it was 43.5 back in 2016, but it's in like the mid 40s, so I just don't necessarily see the ceiling. And I feel like, there are some guys going later on. Again, still like I'd rather take a chance on, for instance, like a Bobby Dahlbeck or somebody like that, where there's just, some really super nice power in this spot. Even Duvall, Adam Duvall, who's going a little bit later than Sanchez. I mean, he's already shown the pop and the RBI potential in the right spot and, on the Braves. So Sanchez, I'm not really interested, but there's a lot of smart people that like him. Joe Adell, I don't really have any interest at all in him. Charlie Blackmon, I think he's really interesting. Like there's a group of folks that includes Michael Brantley. That's kind of their batting average late if that's what you're down on. And I think there's some, he got unlucky last year. Again, if my memory serves me correctly, on his barrels per home run. In Coors, he had a lower BABIP than he usually does. He was struggling with some injuries. He should play every day. He's got that monster contract. He should be able to DH, keep him fresh. The batting average should at least be there. And if he plays 600 plus plate appearances with the Rockies, I think the counting stats will be there enough as well. So I've been drafting him a little bit recently. Austin Hayes, I haven't really gone for. I think the challenge with Hayes is like the power is not really all that special. The projections like him to steal a little bit more than maybe he has, so far in his career. And the batting average hasn't been that good either. So, but maybe there's a little something there. I don't know on Hayes. But I have not been going for him. And then Adam Duvall, I did draft Adam Duvall. I felt really bad about it. Like I felt disgusting after I drafted him. I was like, I cannot believe I just did that. What just happened? This is crazy. But I drafted him and I don't mind it. We're kind of where he's going. He's got elite power. He's on the Braves. He should play every day with that DH there, and he's a good defensive outfielder as well. So why not? Why not?
Yeah, this is an interesting grouping. Sanchez, I don't mind, but I'm with you. There's the batting average just doesn't look appealing at all. The power is awesome. I love the power, but that batting average looks going to hurt quite a bit. So maybe he takes the next step and improves. Probably won't be doing it on my team at all, honestly. And people will probably go, then why are you liking this guy? I like Joe Adell quite a bit. I think there's a lot to like there. It's a guy that's still super young, one of the top prospects in their system. He's 22 years old. He's just kind of gotten his feet wet a couple times the last 2 years in the bigs. In the minor leagues, he destroyed it last year. And we finished the season on a really good note with the Angels. 8 hits in his last 8-game hitting streak. 3 home runs over that stretch, a triple, some extra base hits. Started getting comfortable. He only played 35 games with the Angels. So he started to get going towards the end of the season. And I think there is a lot to like there. It's a crowded outfield. You got Marsh. You got Trout coming back for now. Ohtani should just DH, hopefully. But there's guys there that could be in the way. But I like Adell at his value. He's one of those guys that last year was going, like we talked about Clinic last week. Adell is going super high, super, super high. He's got that ability to hit 20-plus home runs and give you 8 to 10 bags, maybe more, in what should be a good lineup if Rendon can stay healthy. Trout, Ohtani, Walsh, There's Austin Fletcher will get on base for guys to drive in. Marsh isn't that bad. It's going to be a pretty good offense if everybody can stay healthy. So I do like Adele quite a bit. Blackman has grown on me. For people who have listened to the show long enough, they know how much I would never draft Charlie Blackman, but now his price is right. It is. He's only 35 years old this year. Yeah, the power decreased the last couple of years. It's not going to be the 30 home run guy, but 15 runs hot gets you 20. That'd be pretty awesome. The runs and RBI should still be good even on a bad Rockies team. Playing on that ballpark will be tremendous. And as you mentioned with like Michael Brantley, Blackman is a really, really solid batting average guy. Like if you have an OBP league, I love Charlie Blackman. I think he's phenomenal in OBP leagues. But for average, he's like where you're getting him, he's the 68th outfielder off the board at an ADP of 240, basically. Like that is pretty darn good to get a guy that can hit you 270, 280 plus. Like you don't have a whole lot of those guys the farther you keep going down that draft board. So I'm starting to like Blackman more and more. I think there's a lot to like there. Not going to steal your bags. Power's going to be a little decreased, but runs, RBIs will be there. If he somehow gets a little hot in power, that's great. That batting average would be tremendous with Charlie Blackman. Austin Hayes, 0 shares of as well. And then Adam Duvall is he's a tough one for me. Like you mentioned, the power is awesome. It's always been awesome. It's almost been more, can he play enough? And he actually got to play 146 games last year, hit 38 homers, which was great. And he drove in 113 RBIs, but more often than not, he doesn't play on. He only hit 228. The average will always be a detriment with Adam Duvall. I agree with what you said. If you like the profile, take Duvall over Sanchez. I 100% agree with that. But it's just a profile I kind of try to avoid in general if I can. Like, I don't mind bad batting average guys, but I don't want like really bad batting average guys, if that makes sense. Like, I'll take my 240 guys, a few of them, try to avoid the 220 guys if possible. So that's where he makes these a little tricky because I don't see that ever really improving. I think we're kind of past that in Duvall's career unless like some miracle happens during this lockout. I just don't know how. Rob DiPietro in the house. What's up, big guy? We'll see you next week. 66 through 70. Lane Thomas, Tommy Pham, Garrett Hampson, Raimel Tapia, Andrew Vaughn.
Yeah, with Lane Thomas, he's kind of fine for me. A little bit of power, little bit of speed, potentially hitting at the top of that Nats order. I think that's the key piece for him. A little bit of a concern around the batting average. I oftentimes don't find myself grabbing Lane Thomas only because of the next guy, Tommy Pham. You know, Tommy Pham, like as of last season, I feel like he was going in the top 100 picks or around like pick 105. Obviously battled some injuries, but still put together like what was he? Close to 15 and 15, if not like a little bit better than that. Last year, still makes a lot of contact. The skills really haven't been slipping. The batting average floor is pretty high. And I think the ceiling is really nice as well. And I still think if he can stay healthy, which is a huge if. I mean, he's still a 2020 guy, and he's a free agent. Hopefully he'll sign somewhere where he's going to play all the time. And when he does that, I anticipate that he's going to be successful. And he's a guy that I've really been getting a lot of late. I also like Garrett Hampson. I know people give him a lot of flack just because he's Garrett Hampson. But, if they run him out, he is going to steal bases. I mean, he was 13 and 17 last year, I believe. If he just recreates that, you're getting a ton of value where he's going right now. And I think the batting average was a little lower than it should be. He's not a bad contact guy. Like, he makes a decent amount of contact. He's got a decent O swing as well. So I think there's definitely 10-20 possibility here, 15-20 possibility here for Hampson if he gets everyday plate appearances.
DiPietro says Pham's main event ADP last year was 123.
Was 123. So, and now you're getting him like pick 235 or something like that. So about 110 picks later. And he put together like a fairly decent season. For some reason, it's not coming up here on my fan graphs. But
he's homeless right now.
Oh, there he is. He went 15 and 14 last year.
And
he hit 229.
But another one of those guys, if you look at his X stats, like and his like contact skills, big. People hate the unlucky term, but he was very unlucky.
Yeah. So Pham, yeah, I like Hampson. Tapia, no, not really. I don't know if he's gonna play. He doesn't play every day. the projections like him a lot. So if you're into that, which I'm generally, I'm not like, I'm into it sometimes, but I don't let it fully guide my decision-making process. But just not a lot of power, like kind of like a rabbit, but isn't stealing as much as like your Miles Straw type guy. But, the batting average is nice. Incourse is nice. But again, like, is he going to play on a regular basis? Last year, his playing time really faded down the stretch. And then Andrew Vaughn. Andrew Vaughn is really interesting to me because there's nothing bad in the underlying metrics. And if anything, like, it's pretty impressive for a guy who, I think he's just like 2 years out of college or whatever. And he comes with the pedigree. So he's the type of guy that could really take that next step. And I think one of the reasons why he's being hurt is because I think Roster Resource doesn't have him starting.
Yeah, cool. He platooned a lot last year because Uncle Tony couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, he platooned a lot, but he's the type of guy, if he could play regularly, could really, he could make that big jump to like 30 home runs or something like that. Because he's got that pedigree to him. But I don't have any of him either because he just doesn't do enough for me at this spot in the draft where we're going. So that's kind of my rundown on those guys. I like a few of them.
Yeah, Lane Thomas is interesting. We saw some good spots from him last year, hitting at the top of that Washington Nationals lineup. Still have Soto there, of course. You have Josh Bell and company. So I can definitely see the appeal. He's going to get you probably double-digit homers and steals with some up. Like if he runs real hot 15-15, which is pretty darn awesome in this range. So I don't mind Lane Thomas at all. Like, I'm not rushing out to get him, but there's appeal there for sure as the draft goes on if you're looking for a guy that can help you in steals. Tommy Pham, I'm with you. 100% love. I'm curious where he lands. That's obviously, I think, part of the reason he's getting drafted where he is. He's a free agent, and there's questions to be had there. Some people aren't probably in love with this season last year, which was still pretty good, like you said. And then there's still a lot of meat on that bone, I think, with Tommy Pham. So if you want to take a stab at him, go for it. Garrett Hampson, big fan of. I'm with you. Like, people hate him. I get it. There's some questions here and there, but you get second base outfield, which is awesome, like really awesome. Plus, this dude legit could get you 30+ stolen bases. Like, if he were to start playing every day, which he should, this is the first time. It's like an argument I made on Twitter a while back. I think I took him the first time. I sent out some tweets, and you get the usual, "Oh, Hampson's bad," and blah blah blah. Like, okay, I get it. He platoons. He does this, that. But the biggest thing is he hasn't played every day because it's the Rockies. There's no reason he shouldn't play this every day. Like, this is the year.
He's old enough now where the Rockies will want to do it.
He's this tall. He's tall enough to ride the ride now. Like, he's allowed to get on the Matterhorn. This is the way things go. Get it, Rockies Mountain. I got you.
I did not get it at first. But that one hits. That one hits good.
I saw the look on your face.
That was great. I was gonna say like Disneyland reference, but like no, the Rockies Matterhorn. Holy.
Yep, I'm trying. It's late.
Crap.
It's late. I know. Lockout late.
That's a top 10. Happening. That's a top 10 thing that's happened on our podcast. I mean, they may be the baseball may be locked out, but we're still bringing you top 10 moments of the podcast.
I'm gonna have to submit that for FSWA for us next year. That might be for
sure. Do that. Just that joke. Best joke.
Yeah, just
on a podcast referencing Disneyland, but not about Disneyland.
Dad joke. Yeah, best dumb dad joke type pun.
Oh, no,
Jeff Erickson, fantastic. You got to run for your money. But yeah, I think there's so much likely he should play second base every day. McMahon over to third, Rogers at short. Like this, there's no reason this shouldn't happen. We'll see. Tapia is interesting because I had him on some teams last year where you can kind of pick and choose when to play him because Connor Joe was playing a lot leading off, but there was a stretch where Connor Joe would play first base and Tapia would hit second and play the outfield. Like, if they can coexist, it's great. Excuse me. Problem is I don't think they're going to coexist right now. But Tapia does have legit stolen base potential, so he's interesting. Vaughn, I love, but I just don't trust the playing time. That's the problem. I love Andrew Vaughn. Love him. I talked about it before, like last year when I saw him playing for Cal. He was playing Cal Poly. I made a point to go watch him. Apparently, I'm going to go to a lot more Cal Poly games this year. He reminded me so much of Josh Donaldson. Like, I took pictures of him, his batting stance, he had the hair and everything. He looks just like Josh Donaldson. So I love Andrew Vaughn. I'm just worried about Uncle Tony, what he's going to do. So it's a tricky one for sure. But at this point in the draft, I think it's worth the gamble if you're comfortable with what you got going on. and you want to take a risk for some power upside, I think he's a great risk at that point. So no problem with that at all. All right, we made it, Toby. 70 guys, 70 outfielders later. That's 70 outfielders on the show. Let's do some listener questions. We got a couple of them. Let's see what we got here. Let me bring up the old trusty phone with the questions, and we kick it off with. Oh, by the way, breaking news. Got this in a chat. Craig Mish is reporting Sixto Sanchez is hurt again. So I wasn't drafting him anyways.
Surprising, right? Yeah, I mean,
I'm just saying for those that still kind of had hope for him, like as late dart throws in drafts, just throwing it out there. It might be one just to completely pass on now. But all right, first question we got here from our buddy Aaron R. at A. Grakey. Who are your favorite outfielders past pick 400? Toby.
Favorite outfielders past pick 400. Now, let me just go here to...
There's a lot of them.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do outfield, just so that I'm not sorting through everybody. Yeah, I like a lot of them. All right. Let's start the engine. Or start our engines. Bradley Zimmer. I like Bradley Zimmer a lot. A little bit of power speed combo there. He was pretty much the best outfielder, maybe this side of Miles Straw, in the Cleveland outfield last year. And so I think he's going to get plenty of run, maybe a platoon concerns, but going this deep in drafts, I think there's the possibility for a nice little breakout. Also, friend of the pod, Justin Mason, has always been a big Bradley Zimmer fan. So we'll give him kudos right there. Matt Vierling is a guy that I really like a lot. I have near 100% exposure to him in draft champions leagues. He's a rookie, kind of lesser known, older guy, but a little bit of power and speed there. So I like Vierling a lot, and maybe playing time in Philly. We'll see how that outfield fills in. But for right now, it looks like he may have some access to playing time. Chad Pinder is a guy that I like. Some smart people have pointed out that, when the season happens, if Matt Olson and Matt Chapman are traded, then Pinder's going to get plenty of run, potentially in multiple positions. And he's got pop. He didn't have it last year. He was battling through some injuries, but he's always been one of those like barrels per batted ball event leaders that we see. Ben Gamble is another one that I like. Going around pick 550, should play every day with the Pirates. A little bit of speed, a little bit of pop, a little bit of batting average. Should play every day. I like Jake Fraley a lot. He's a guy who he's going to be platooned right now. But he's the guy like that you could really put up like a pretty nice season, like a 15-15 type season. I think if he stays healthy and he plays on a regular basis and gets that run, could be dispossessed in that outfield if they sign the right guys. But, I like Jake Fraley. I think I'll stop right there.
All right. I got a couple more. I like the, which one? He had one there I liked quite a bit. Might go back to him in a minute, but one that I think is there's a bunch here. Like I won't name them all. It's the ones that stand out the most. I love Garrett Cooper. I've always loved Garrett Cooper. It's just a matter of health with him. But like if you want to talk batting average assets later in your drafts, and with the DH, he benefited a ton from it in the 60-game season, and he will again this season. When he was healthy, he benefited in 2020. He hit 284 last year, 283, 281. When he is healthy, he hits for an average. He's got power. He's going super late. This is a guy I like to target quite a bit in Garrett Cooper. I'm still a sucker for Aaron Hicks just because he's going to be playing every day in that Yankees lineup, and that's just a really good lineup. If he can't stay healthy, you drop him, but there's a lot of potential there with Aaron Hicks still. Anthony Alford is a popular one. He's got a ton of power speed. Just can't he keep it together with the average enough to stay in a lineup? That's a tricky one with him, but tons of power, tons of speed. Don't mind taking a late shot on him. Man, there's tons of them. If I want to go later, I like Ben Gamble's the one I like that you mentioned a lot. I think Ben Gamble's a very, very good, and Jake Fraley's not bad either, but I like the Ben Gamble shout there because I think there's something there. And then in your super, super deep, I keep getting sucked into, and maybe things will change, but at pick 656, this will be my last one because there's more to come. But Stephen Piscotty, he's starting for the Oakland A's. Starting. Unless something crazy happens. Maybe he gets hurt or something, but the dude can hit 20+ home runs if he plays a full season. So like he's going almost a pick 700. So if he like, he's a guy I have on so many leagues as like my 10th outfielder because you're just looking for at bats at that point. If something happens, so be it. But if you're taking him versus a potential prospect, I'll take the guy that's supposed to play every day. So, but Scotty's interesting, and Rob DiPietro believes Hicks is interesting. I agree. It's just a matter of health with him. That's the tough part with Hicks. But if he can stay healthy, he's another 15 to 20 home run guy. Tons of runs scored with the Yankees. So we'll see. Well, there's a lot of outfielders late. Lots of them. It makes them tough to go get like your core guys early in DCs and then fill up the rest of your stuff. There's tons of outfielders to be had. Next question. Charlie's with a 4 instead of an A. Thanks for doing these pods. Couple of questions. The first one. Thoughts on Harrison Bader? We gave that one. So we're good there. He said he plays elite D, made some improvements in K percentage. Why do people rank Verdugo higher? Okay, we talked about both. Would you take Bader over Verdugo? Let's answer that for him.
I'd probably take Bader over Verdugo just because of the speed. I mean, I may have been a little bit harsh on Bader, honestly.
It was bad for a while. Like I understand what you were saying.
It was bad for a while, but the end of the season, like he was just on some sort of crazy BABIP run. But then when you look at the full contents of it, right, he hit 267, just slightly above his league average, but he did make contact improvements. He was down at 21.2%, with a 77% contact rate. The O swing did get worse. The BABIP wasn't outrageous at all. The home run per fly ball wasn't outrageous either. So he seemed to earn all of it, and certainly a 267 batting average with 16 home runs and 9 steals is not anything to sniff at. Like the Bat X projection of 244, 18 home runs, 12 steals, that's nothing to sniff at either, especially in 516 plate appearances. You get up to 600 plate appearances, and you're talking about it closer to a 2015 guy, which is something. So I may have been a little bit harsh on Bader there, and I don't necessarily see him deposing Tommy Edman.
It'd be tough, but maybe Dylan Carlson batting second.
Yeah, but you never know, and you never know what could happen, and you have a new manager. Yeah. So, I may have been a little bit of harsh on Bader, so I apologize. I just would like to take this opportunity to apologize to Harrison Bader for not giving him a fair shake. I think there's definitely some potential there. You made some solid improvements. I may not be a believer, but I can certainly understand those people out there who do believe in Harrison Bader, especially where he's going in drafts.
I'm glad we can come full circle there. Now we're talking. And I think one of the things we have to think about, and it's still the number of at bats won't change, but with the DH, no pitcher batting ninth, I think more is possible for the bottom of the order guys. Like more can be done. Where we look at certain guys' numbers, and it's like they were kind of screwed over by the situation, probably more often than not in that. So that could change as well. His other question, he says, thoughts on Kiki Hernandez and Hunter Renfroe. All three are available. So he's talking about Bader, Hernandez, Renfroe. All three are available in his 10-team Roto Dynasty 5 outfielders. So between Bader, Hernandez, Renfroe, which one? How would you rank the three for Dynasty?
For Dynasty, I'd go Renfroe. I mean, honestly, in a 10-teamer, how many players are there?
5 outfielders.
5 outfielders, but even in a 10-teamer, I mean,
starting 50. You're not using probably most of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, Renfroe is probably the only one that I would roster in a 10-teamer, honestly.
I go Renfroe, Bader, Hernandez, just because Bader's still young. There's upside there.
Who's this year's Akil Baddoo?
He asked that question on every pod I do.
Does he?
James, he asks that question on every pod.
James is asking, who's this year's Akil Baddoo?
Yes,
he was just kidding.
He's kidding. Yeah, well, because he asked that on every single pod.
There's no kidding on this podcast. Who is this year's Akil Baddoo? Who is the player who will be a Rule 5 draft pick, mash righties, suck like crazy against lefties, and be super overdrafted the following year? Who's this year's Akil Baddoo?
Cedric Mullins.
Bradley Zimmer.
Close enough. We got Justin Mason both sides there, so it works.
Bradley Zimmer. I mean,
no, it's very possible. You're not wrong. I get exactly what you're saying.
Bradley Zimmer.
Yeah, it's very possible.
James,
Very
you
possible.
heard it here first. You heard it here first.
Our buddy MS at SMMS79 with our last question of the evening. In draft and holds, I had the most success last year when I targeted guys with a single valuable skill that I lacked at the time. When you get to the 300 to 500 range, do you approach it similarly, or is a guy like Luis Arias a no-go? Like he talks about like Arias such great batting average guys. So his later picks, he tried to get like certain assets with each pick. Or do you try to still get like the multi-category is what he's kind of asking, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously you want multi-category, but are you trying to focus on something?
Yeah, it's a great question. First, before I answer that, I just want to say Mark, because that is the first name of SMMS or however
great.
it says.
That's good to know going forward. Thank you.
It is. I would just like to say congratulations on winning the League Cup for Liverpool in an incredible game on Sunday.
That's right. You guys
Liverpool won the League Cup.
Yeah, didn't like the backup goalie miss the kick?
Oh, let me tell you, it was nuts. It was a great game, back and forth, 0-0.
Why is the goalie
Liverpool
making a penalty
won
kick?
11-10 on PKs because all 11 players on Liverpool made it, and the first 10 players on Chelsea made it. So the only ones left were the goalkeepers, and their goalkeeper missed it, and it was a substitute goalkeeper. And the narrative was just too strong because last year or 2 years ago, his coach asked him to come out of a penalty kick shootout, and he refused to do it. And so it had to happen. But we won. Liverpool already with a trophy this year. We're going for 3 more. Nothing can stop us. We're rolling. All right. So now that we've answered that, the way that I generally handle it is I'm looking for plate appearances are kind of like the top filter. I want guys that are going to play, even if they're not that good, even if they're Alcides Escobar, right? I want plate appearances. I want 3 to 4, preferably 4 at each of the infield positions, 3 or 4 catchers, depending on how dangerous I'm feeling in that particular DC. And then I want like 8, 9, 10 outfielders because you probably will use all of those guys throughout the course of a season. So that's kind of like the top filter that I use. So I'm looking at plate appearances. I'm looking at filling those positions. And then I'm also trying to address, I'm going to leave the draft with some sort of weakness. In some drafts, it's been power, right? So I'll draft so I'll go for power guys later on, In some, it's steals. So then I'm looking at some steals guys like a Bradley Zimmer or somebody like that who I'm trying to add. So it really is trying to fill in those pockets of weakness that you might have and or kind of backfill that foundation that you've built in. And generally there aren't a lot of 5 category guys, right? I mean, that's why they're at that back end of the draft. And so I'm really trying to look for guys that are going to play, that fill a positional need that I have, and that at the same time are also filling some sort of categorical need or weakness that I feel like I have on my team. So those are kind of the different filters that I kind of, screen through my guys. Yeah.
Yeah, we're very similar. Like I had Steve Weimer on a show. I know you're in a text group with him, and he's very, very good at DCs. Very, very good. And you are too, obviously, but Steve's very
not
good.
as good as Steve.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
He broke down very similar roster construction build, like you're saying. And so, like what I do when I get to a certain part in the draft before I make my picks, because they're slow drafts and I pull up my roster grid like every time to make sure like I'm not deficient in a certain position. Because the last thing you want to do is like realize it 2 rounds too late, and then you're stuck with Kevin Biggio. Because that happened to me before. Like you just don't want those things. You just don't want those.
Imagine having Kevin Biggio?
It's miserable. I can because I haven't been Battle of the Pods. So
can that guy hit a home run? On that exit velocity, like at the perfect launch angle?
In AAA, he can.
Can he hit a home run?
It won't be on my team. So, yeah. Okay. But that helps that situation. And then, like you mentioned, plate appearances. That's why I loved, like I mentioned, Stephen Biscotti. If he's starting at pick 660 something, like there's a couple weeks of the year you'll use him, like you said, and it makes you feel so much better about life. So I'm with you in that for sure. But for the most part, Toby nailed it like usual. So you can definitely go on that one. Another question here in the chat. Brian K asks, hey guys, do you know if Brad Miller has a home? No, he does not. He's got 20 games in outfield last year. Don't love him, but I thought a strong side platoon. He's a great platoon guy. We saw it in the past. He's got a ton of powers. He's just got no home. he will sign somewhere that needs a platoon guy. Like, there's no doubt about that. I just have no clue where, because he could literally fit on all 30 teams.
Yeah, I like Brad Miller. I actually don't have any of Brad Miller. I had a ton of Brad Miller the last couple of years.
I'm just scared to
definitely
take him right
definitely
now.
a guy like a cheapo team. That's what I'm going to start calling them, and started calling them like small market or like whatever
They're
it
cheap.
is. Like
they're all cheap.
The cheapo
There's
team.
30 cheap teams.
There's enough cheapo teams that will sign him to be the strong side of a DH platoon, and it's not like a terrible
DiPietro said the
either.
Yankees, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I mean he's a fine enough hitter, and he's got some pop for sure. So it's a good shout.
Yeah, play first base, outfield, and DH. Like, he can really help. He used to play middle infield, so he probably could swing around every once in a while if he had to. Like, he'd be a great fit somewhere for sure. Mr. Robert DiPietro, yes, Joey Weimer rules. We know Joey. He said Taylor Rogers.
Oh, he's not talking about Joey.
Who's he talking about?
He's talking about Steve.
Oh, okay. Yes, you're right. My bad.
He's talking about Steve Weimer rules.
My bad. You are so right. We're just talking about.
Okay, this is a tough question. All right, you've got a room, and it's full of Weimers.
How do you rank them?
Joey Weimer and Steve Weimer in a room.
Okay.
Or maybe like in a line, and you're drafting them. Who do you choose first? Do you choose Steve Weimer or Joey Weimer first? I mean, this seems like a pretty clear answer to me, Bubba.
Steve Weimer, of course.
Steve Weimer, of course.
He's got the longer pedigree, longer track record.
The guy has been producing for years.
Yeah.
And also, the thing is, like, I mean, Steve's awesome, and I love Joey Weimer, but he hasn't even hit the big leagues yet. I mean, Steve Weimer has hit.
Steve is the big leagues. He is the big leagues. So
he is. Okay. He defines. He personifies the big leagues.
You are there. You are correct there. And on that note, we're going to wrap things up before we go down some really good rabbit holes. It's been a heck of a show, though. We had Nick Pollock early on, having some fun with us. We talked about 35 outfielders. We had some fun listener questions. We had Rob DiPietro just filling up the chat with some greatness. Like, I didn't mention everything. It's just fun. So if you guys want to join us on the YouTube, like, the chat room's there. And Big Robert D, he's going to be back on the airwaves this week, folks. He's got Johnny L coming on this week. I believe there's a certain podcast duo, Justin Mason's second favorite podcast duo, is going to be making an appearance on Rob DiPietro's Pull Hitter podcast next week. That's what I've heard. That's what I've heard. We'll have to talk to people, but I think that's happening. So make sure you guys go check it out.
It's so nice to have Rob back. Yep. And the podcast, the Pull Hitter podcast, I mean, check it out.
Good stuff.
Rob is an amazing host. And he asks really great questions, and there's a lot of really great strategy bites in those podcasts. So I'd highly recommend them, especially the March 10th.
That March 10th recording probably drops March 11th, give or take.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the one I'd recommend.
The March 10th recording of that podcast is going to be really phenomenal.
And I'm gonna have to hack into his computer, because he talked about all this like Google Sheet stuff he's been doing lately, because I'm stupid at that and I really want to check it out. So I'm curious.
I mean, the man is in the big leagues when it comes to Google Sheets.
Yes, big leagues.
And just generally.
He's a pull hitter.
He is.
You can't even shift him, because right over you.
I mean, if Kevin Biggio or Josh Rojas
on that note, Kevin Biggio
were as good of a pull hitter as Rob DiPietro is, they might hit a home run next year. It could be possible.
We've hit our Kevin Biggio limit on, so we have to wrap up the show. We mentioned him too much. Brian Slack is going to be drunk with laughter. So you can check out Toby on Twitter at BatFlipCrazy. I'm at BDentric. This was our outfield episode preview, volume 2, Bubba and BatFlip episode 115. We'll be back with you guys next week with more previews. I think we're going starting pitching next.
I think starting pitching.
Yep. Maybe Nick Pollock can show up for that. So we'll get on that one next week. But for now, you guys have a good one. Baseball's coming. Stay positive. Catch you guys later.